Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we continue to follow the turbulent story between CEO James and Lie Too Deep, a journey not only filled with love, but also laden with misunderstandings, conspiracies, and aching anticipation. In the previous episode, after mistakenly believing that Officer Lee was behind the schemes that harmed her, Deep decided to leave in silence. She carried with her fear, pain, and deep disappointment. Without a single goodbye, no one knows where she has gone. Now, Deep is wandering the streets with no place to go, her heart tangled in a mess of emotions. Meanwhile, James refuses to give up. He's on the verge of madness after losing all contact with Deep. Day after day, he visits familiar places, hoping to catch even a glimpse of her. But the more he searches, the more helpless he becomes. His heart breaks a little more each day, yet his hope never fades. During Deep's absence, Trang begins to act. Taking advantage of the void in James's heart, she gradually approaches him with gentle gestures filled with hidden intentions. She doesn't rush, but stays quietly by his side whenever he falls. Behind her caring demeanor lies a well-crafted plan. What's more disturbing is that Trang's parents have secretly gotten involved. They want their daughter to marry a successful CEO, and Deep's disappearance is the perfect opportunity to push their agenda. Coincidental meetings, carefully arranged family dinners, all of it orchestrated with one goal in mind, to trap James in an emotional web of their making. So, will James realize he's being drawn into a calculated plan? Will he stay strong enough to continue waiting for Deep's return, or will he eventually soften under Trang's affection and her family's influence? And what about Deep? In her lonely and wounded days, will someone show up to help her rediscover trust and truth? The situation is growing more complex, and everything could change in the blink of an eye. Stay tuned for today's episode to uncover the latest developments. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss any important moments. After leaving Officer Lee's house in a state of confusion and deep emotional pain, Deep began wandering aimlessly through the unfamiliar city. She had no identification, had left her phone behind, and her bag was completely empty. She had nothing but growing fear and disorientation. As the sun disappeared behind the tall buildings and the cold began to set in, Deep found a spot by the roadside to rest, planning to get through the night somehow despite the relentless noise of traffic and city life. That night, just as Deep drifted off from exhaustion, a drunken man suddenly appeared. He staggered toward her, his eyes glassy, slurring as he noticed a young woman lying alone on the street. With a sneer, he began making inappropriate remarks. Deep awoke in panic, realizing his sinister intentions. She stood up immediately, trying to escape, but he grabbed her arm with a swift motion. Overwhelmed with terror, Deep struggled and screamed for help, but the streets were deserted. The man, frustrated by her resistance, grew aggressive. He shoved her to the ground and snatched away her silver necklace and earrings, precious mementos her mother had given her as a child. To him, they were just trinkets to exchange for more alcohol. But to Deep, they were all she had left connecting her to her family and childhood, a fragile spiritual thread holding her together in this stormy life. Unable to fight back, Deep waited for a split second when he looked away, then broke free and ran, tears streaming down her face, her bare feet pounding against the cold pavement. She ran until her body gave out. Then, at the corner of a quiet street, she spotted a small, abandoned-looking house. With no other place to go, she curled up in a cold corner beside it, buried her face in her knees, and sat in silence. That night, she couldn't sleep. Tears slid down her cheeks, silent, bitter tears filled with humiliation, fear, and hopelessness. She wished she could disappear from this world. It felt like an endless night, the first night in her life spent sleeping on the street, alone, unseen, and forgotten. At dawn, with mist still lingering in the air, Deep remained huddled in that corner. Her eyes were dark with fatigue, her hair disheveled, and her face blank with despair. Suddenly, the sound of soft footsteps approached. A middle-aged woman, modest in appearance with gentle eyes, stood nearby, looking at Deep with concern. She sat beside her and asked gently, "Sweetheart, are you okay? Have you been sitting here since last night?" Deep was startled and didn't dare raise her head. After a while, moved by the woman's kind and sincere voice, she hesitantly shared a part of her story, that she had been robbed, had no money, didn't know how to get home, and her home was over 150 kilometers away. She had no one to call, and no idea what to do. The woman didn't say much. She quietly took out her wallet, went to buy Deep a warm loaf of bread and a carton of milk. Handing her the food, she sat down again and spoke in a voice filled with care. "Eat something, dear. You can't stay hungry like this. If you need, I can help you call someone or find a way to get in touch with your family. Don't be afraid, I won't do anything to hurt you." Deep held the bread in her hands, tears rolling down her cheeks. It had been so long since someone had shown her such warmth. And yet, the fear inside her hadn't gone away. She had lost trust in strangers, afraid that if she trusted the wrong person again, she might fall into another disaster. She lowered her head and softly declined. "Thank you. I'm okay. I don't want to trouble you anymore." The woman understood. She simply nodded, then handed Deep a small piece of paper with her phone number on it. "If you change your mind, call me. You're not alone, don't think that. No matter how harsh life gets, there are still good people willing to reach out." Then she stood up and left, leaving Deep sitting there, hands trembling as she held the warm bread, tears streaming down her face. And for the first time in many painful days, a faint warmth stirred inside her, like a small light breaking through the cold. After the kind woman left, leaving a small slip of paper with her phone number and a bit of warm food in Deep's hands, Deep remained seated for a long time in that corner of the old house. Morning sunlight filtered through the tree branches above the sidewalk, soft and golden, like a gentle reassurance from the heavens after a long, dark night. Slowly, Deep stood up and began walking again. She didn't know where she was going, but in her heart, she held on to a belief: as long as she was alive, as long as she could keep walking, one day she would find James again. Deep walked tirelessly along the road. Her feet were swollen from running, from stepping on gravel, from endless wandering. Hunger, thirst, and exhaustion pushed her body to the edge of collapse. But her heart kept her going, kept lifting her to take one more step, then another. By noon, the sun was high and her hunger unbearable. She stopped in front of a small roadside eatery. The aroma of pho wafted from the kitchen, making her stomach churn with longing. After hesitating for a long moment, she gathered her courage and stepped inside. Her voice was hoarse, her eyes locked on the owner, a middle-aged man with a kind face and gentle eyes. I'm sorry to bother you. I don't have any money, but I'm very hungry. If possible, I'm willing to work for a meal. I'm not asking for charity, I just ask to work in exchange for a bowl of rice." The man looked at Deep. Perhaps he had seen many lives down on their luck. He didn't ask questions, just nodded and called into the kitchen. "One large bowl of pho. Extra egg and greens for this girl." Just a few minutes later, a steaming bowl of pho was placed in front of Deep. The broth was clear and fragrant, with tender slices of beef and bright green scallions. Deep bowed her head in thanks, then began to eat ravenously. It had been so long since she'd tasted a proper meal. Every spoonful carried deep gratitude and overwhelming emotion. After finishing, Deep offered to wash dishes and clean the shop. The owner smiled and nodded. She scrubbed each bowl carefully, dried every spoon, swept the floor, and wiped every table until not a speck of dust remained. Her meticulousness and sincerity truly moved the man. When she had finished, he called her over and placed a small bill in her hand. "You're a good kid. Here's your pay. Use it to get something to eat later. Don't say no, just think of it as a father helping his daughter." Deep shook her head repeatedly, eyes brimming with tears. She didn't want to take it, but the shop owner gently insisted, placing it firmly in her hand with a soft but firm voice. "You earned it. You did your part. Keep it, you might need it on the road ahead." In the end, Deep accepted the small amount, her hands trembling as a strange warmth filled her heart. In the harsh currents of life, there were still kind people, compassionate souls who didn't seek gain, but simply couldn't bear to see others suffer. She bowed in thanks, then left the eatery and continued on her way. Her steps no longer faltered like before. Though the future was still uncertain, and though she didn't know when she would find James, Deep now knew this. She was no longer alone on her journey home. As for James, after a long period of neglecting his work to fully devote himself to searching for Deep, he was finally forced to return to the company to deal with the important projects that had come to a halt. Meetings, planning documents, and stacks of paperwork piled up on his desk left him exhausted, both physically and mentally. Yet in his heart, James never stopped thinking about Deep, the woman he loved more than anything. Even though she had vanished without a word, she remained present in every beat of his heart. One afternoon, while James was quietly working in his office, Trang appeared. She brought a cup of hot tea and some documents that needed his signature. Seeing how worn out he looked, she gently sat beside him and softly asked, "Are you okay? You seem to have lost a lot of weight lately." James gave a faint smile and nodded instead of replying. Trang sighed, her eyes tinged with sadness. "I heard, there's still no news about Deep, is there?" He was silent for a long moment before nodding, his voice low. "No. Not a word. But I believe she's still alive. And I'll keep searching." Trang looked at him for a while, then gently placed her hand on the desk, her voice sweet but laced with hidden meaning. "James, if, and I mean if, you can't find her, maybe you should take care of yourself too. Maybe it's time to pause everything, go somewhere to clear your mind. I'm going overseas for a few weeks on a business trip. Why don't you come with me? You could relax, and help out with the work. I could take care of you too." Hearing this, James immediately understood the underlying message in Trang's words. She had been by his side ever since Deep disappeared, not just as a colleague, but as a woman silently harboring feelings for him. He turned to her, his gaze sincere but firm. "Thank you, Trang. I know you've always been concerned and have helped me a lot at work. I'm grateful for that. But my heart belongs to only one person. Whether it's 1 year or 10. I'll wait for Deep. I can't leave, because I'm afraid that if I go and she comes back, and I'm not here, what then?" Trang lowered her head, the faint smile on her lips vanishing. Her heart tightened, as if someone had sent a cold gust of wind into her chest. She had hoped, had waited for a chance, any sign of hesitation from James. But even during the days when Deep was missing without a trace, she still couldn't find a way into his heart. James continued, gently but resolutely. "I hope you can understand. And if you can, please keep supporting me at work. It's thanks to you that I can focus on searching for her." Trang forced herself to remain composed, nodding quietly. "I understand. I won't bother you anymore." She stood up, gathered her documents, gave a brief nod of farewell, and quietly left the room. Her figure slowly faded behind the door, leaving James sitting in silence in the vast office, where even the ticking of the clock echoed loudly in the emptiness. After Trang left, James stared at the framed photo of him and Deep placed in the corner of his desk. It was an old picture, but Deep's smile in it was still as radiant as ever. He gently touched the photo and whispered, "Where are you, Deep? I won't stop searching until you come back." That morning, James left his house very early. The pale morning sunlight cast a soft glow on his weary face, his eyes dark and sunken from many sleepless nights. He had arranged to meet with the police to revisit the area where Deep was believed to have last been seen, a border zone between narrow alleyways and an abandoned lot. Several investigators and the local area chief were present. They brought with them scene maps, professional equipment, and even deployed sniffer dogs to meticulously comb through every corner, every suspicious spot. James quietly followed behind, his eyes watching every move, hoping for even the smallest glimmer of a lead. But after hours of searching, the results remained unchanged. There were no traces of Deep, no clothes, no documents, not a single witness or security camera capturing her whereabouts after she vanished. The police captain, a seasoned middle-aged man, walked up to James and spoke in a heavy, solemn voice. "We've gone over the entire area again. The whole team gave it their all. We even used sniffer dogs to pick up a trail, but truly, there's nothing. No sign of her yet. That said, we're not giving up. We'll continue expanding the search radius, and the moment we have a lead, you'll be the first to know." James clenched his fists, pressing his lips together to keep his composure. He knew they had tried their best, the fatigue in their eyes, the weight in their voices told him that much. Though his heart ached deeply, he bowed his head low and said sincerely, "Thank you all, for not giving up on her with me." The captain patted James gently on the shoulder, nodded, and left with the officers, leaving James standing alone in the empty field, where the wind softly rustled the dry grass. He looked around. The scene remained just as silent as it had been the day before. That haunting stillness, in the very place where the woman he loved was last known to have stood. A quiet sorrow began to spread inside him, yet James remained there for a long time, as if afraid that if he left, Deep might return and not find him. Never before had time felt so unbearably slow. Yet still, he stayed. Still believing. Still waiting. After finishing the meeting with the police, even though there was still no progress, James refused to give up. He knew that if he relied on only one source, the chances of finding Deep would grow even more distant. In the midst of his tangled thoughts, one person immediately came to mind, CEO Hung, his childhood friend and most trusted business partner for many years. Without hesitation, James called Hung. On the other end, Hung's warm, steady voice carried a tone of concern as soon as he heard James speak. "How's it going? Any news about Deep?" James sighed, trying to hold back the emotions surging within him, and briefly explained the situation. The police had re-examined the entire suspected area, even using sniffer dogs, but still found no trace of Deep. He voiced his growing fear that Deep may have already left the city. Perhaps she was wandering through remote rural areas where no one would recognize or report her. "Hung, I think she may have left the area. I need your help. Could you send people to check the surrounding districts, remote villages, anywhere someone might have seen a young woman wandering alone, without ID, without family? I know it's a big ask, but you're the only one I trust with this." There was a pause on the other end, as if Hung was taking a moment to fully absorb the weight of his friend's pain. Then he gently replied, "James, I understand. Don't say it's a bother. You're my brother. I'll contact our branch offices in the nearby regions right away and ask them to coordinate with local authorities for thorough inquiries. But you also need to take care of yourself. Deep will need you to be strong and clear-headed when she returns." James was deeply moved, unable to speak for a moment. In his most vulnerable time, there was still someone like Hung, not just a friend, but a solid anchor. He didn't forget to ask about Hung's situation. "How's TUCA doing? Last I heard, she gave birth prematurely. Is she okay now?" Hung sighed, his voice noticeably softer. "TUCA's still in the hospital. I've been running back and forth between home and the ward. It's tough, but don't worry. No matter how busy things get, I'll find a way to help. We'll find Deep and bring her home. You're not alone, never forget that." James fell silent for a few seconds, his eyes lifting toward the sky as if to swallow the storm of emotion. Finally, his voice emerged, hoarse, but unwavering. "Thank you, Hung, truly, thank you. As long as there's even a sliver of hope, I won't stop." And so, these two men, each carrying his own burden, stood firm in the storm, not for themselves, but for the ones they loved. Together, they began a quiet yet determined network of search efforts, bound by one goal: to bring Deep back, safe, whole, and back into James's arms. Deep's road home was anything but easy. Every step was a challenge, every night a battle against hunger, cold, loneliness, and fear. That young woman, with bare feet and a heart full of scars, kept moving forward, even though she had no idea if someone would be waiting for her at the end of the road. As for James, amidst exhaustion, loss, and countless shattered hopes, he never gave up. He searched everywhere, did everything within his power, not out of duty, but out of love. A love that asked for nothing in return, that knew no limit of time, and that refused to bow to fate. But, will fate smile upon them? Will Deep return safely, into the arms of the man who has searched for her day and night through every twist and turn life could offer? And will James be able to hold on to his faith, waiting until that destined day finally arrives? Is love truly strong enough to overcome all hardship, to triumph over even the cruel silence of time? All the answers will unfold in the next episode. Stay tuned.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Thì hôm nay kênh của mình đã lên tập tiếp theo về câu chuyện của James và Lý Tử Diệp. Mình cũng cảm ơn mọi người rất là nhiều vì trong thời gian vừa qua, thời gian gần đây thì mọi người đã ủng hộ kênh mình khá là nhiều. Hiện tại thì kênh mình đang hoạt động khá là ổn định và mình dự định là trong thời gian tới kênh của mình sẽ phát triển hơn, là mình sẽ lên thêm một nội dung nữa ở trên kênh, tức là thêm nội dung của Lý Hoài Ca ở trên kênh. Trước đó thì mình cũng có lên một vài tập của Lý Hoài Ca rồi, nhưng mà mình cảm thấy là mọi người chưa có ủng hộ nhiều nên thời gian đó là mình đã không có lên thêm và mình chỉ tập trung vào nội dung của Lý Tử Diệp thôi. Nhưng mà thời gian gần đây thì cảm ơn mọi người rất là nhiều, thì mình thấy mọi người đang ủng hộ kênh của mình hơn. Mình quyết định là trong thời gian tới mình sẽ cố gắng lên một ngày khoảng 1 đến 2 video để cho mọi người có thể xem và thưởng thức những câu chuyện hay. Mong rằng mọi người sẽ tiếp tục ủng hộ kênh mình nhiều hơn để mình có động lực ra nhiều video và hay hơn cho mọi người cùng xem.